My name is Matthew. I'm the editor-in-chief at exercise.com, and today we're talking with David Donatucci, who is the owner of Florida Institute of Performance. He's worked with athletes from the NBA, NFL, MLB, NHL, LPGA, and the PGA, and is a expert when it comes to sports performance. So he's going to be our guest today, and we also have Daniel, who's from our team. Daniel, if you want to give a brief introduction.
Yeah, so I'm Daniel. I'm a writer with exercise.com. I played golf competitively throughout high school. I played in the high school state tournament twice and the first tee open at Pebble Beach in California.
Awesome. Well, we'll jump right into it. So David, can you tell us about your passion for golf? Where did it come from? How has it changed or developed as you got a chance to work with athletes and kind of put some of that into practice with your business?
I guess the passion or the start in golf really started back many years ago, and I'll say about 95, 97. I was working with a sports agent up in Cleveland, Ohio, and he had a couple of players that he represented, and one of them being Greg Norman. We talked really about how his fitness, he was a fitness enthusiast, how he did a lot of different types of things. And we just started talking about how there's really nothing in the game of golf from a fitness perspective that's kind of controlled, because I was kind of paralleling that to my experience in basketball and how that was kind of starting at that time to kind of go through a lot of the teams were surprisingly just then kind of getting strength and conditioning coaches into the teams and everything. And most of the teams that we worked with, there were very few that actually had a strength and conditioning coach, that being basketball. From there in 1999, I went down to IMG Academies to take a position with IMG Academies in their International Performance Institute. And I basically said, let me run the golf division. They're like, please do, because nobody wanted that. And at the time, most of the individuals really didn't see a need to work out. They just thought it would be, I'm going to go hit balls. I need to spend more time hitting balls on the range, and that's going to help me get better. So that's really, how it started for me, was kind of working with a lot of the kids in the academy. Then I had the opportunity to work with a number of younger players who were just kind of developing, and kind of created an own separate program for them, and did a lot of things that, kids came in, were at the academy at 7:00 in the morning, and started working out before they went to school. And really I was able to really create and develop some programs that I felt some of the kids needed at that time, from more of a developmental standpoint, and also for golf.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, it's interesting. You might notice I'm wearing my Celtics green shirt today. So basketball is more of my passion. But it's interesting you say that, because over the last 20 years, you see players playing way longer than ever, and I don't think it's any mistake that kind of corresponds with what you're saying, having a strength and conditioning coach, focusing on better sleep and all those sorts of things.
Yeah, again, go back to it. 90, I would say 91, 92, 93, I was with the Cleveland Cavaliers. This is the time when, they had Brad Daugherty and Larry Nance and Craig Elo and Mark Price and all those guys. And they were a really good team. But again, fitness, your training was like, I really don't want to do that. It was tough getting the guys to do anything, to go through a lot of stuff. And it was the old angle, it's going to ruin my shot. If I work out too much, I'm going to get big and bulky, and I'm not going to be able to play that well, and go through a lot of those things. And some guy named Jordan, I'm really not sure if he amounted to anything, but he kind of changed the rules of that game.
Yeah.
With him, and went through a lot of different types of situations. People realized that, you still can be a great level player and still work out and do the things necessary to do all that.
Yep. Yeah, and LeBron's kind of even taken that to the next level. I've heard he spends just millions of dollars on his body, and he's still going strong into year 17 now. So
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's really interesting how that's aligned and then even transferred into golf. I don't know if this is even the case, but what's a normal workday look like for you as you're working with athletes and doing other things with your business?
Yeah, my workday is I'll say almost changing, but it's not. I'm getting here probably like 5:30 in the morning, and that's just for that first hour before people start getting here. I'll say to get caught up. on kind of preparing for my day and kind of figuring a lot of things out and looking at the facility and kind of cleaning that up a little bit and organizing that, and then really getting ready for the people that are coming in here. And it starts like today. It started. I had really a dedicated lady. She's about 76 years old. Plays golf. She gets here every day at 6:30 in the morning. She walks on the treadmill for a half an hour. We work out for an hour. She walks on treadmill for another half an hour. She goes, gets a lesson. She goes, plays golf. And then she finds some other time to kind of eat and do everything else that she needs to do the rest of her day. So that's kind of one of the people that come in here. But really, it's people start to roll in here about 6:30, 7 o'clock, 7:30. A lot of our, I always say with golfers, it's kind of good news that they're here. It's bad news that they're here. If they're here, they're not playing in their tournaments. If they are here, they're working out. So it's that kind of like good news, bad news scenarios for a lot of them. So we got a lot of guys that are out playing right now, which is the benefit. You just hope that they're continuing a lot of stuff that they do on the road to kind of go through a lot of that. So a lot of my activity is really, I'll say, managing programs, implementing training programs that are going on. I got a staff of about 2, and we're bringing in a couple interns in a couple of weeks to kind of go through a lot of summer internship programs that we're developing. I got an open house coming up this weekend that I'm kind of preparing for that and getting all the necessary things going. So it's a split. I like to say it's evenly split, but in terms of the business and the actual training, but I think I spend more time training than I do business wise, because that's what I enjoy doing more than kind of running that business part of it. But that's kind of the main thing is we get kind of ebbs and flows of waves of people coming in and out. So that's the after school crowd is going to hit it here about 3:30, and we'll go to about 7.
Have you found anything really, any tips or anything that's really been helpful to try to engage the athletes while they're in their tournaments and like keep them focused on, like you said, kind of keeping with the things that they've learned and the techniques that you've taught them while they're working out and training with you?
Yeah, that I really, I think the biggest change for me is utilizing the exercise.com platform. I've have that to be able to really keep tabs on my athletes a whole lot better and making sure that they're doing some things. So the online platform that we have created and have developed is really, for me, was the necessary portion of that was to have that for my athletes to travel a lot. So to make sure that when they're here, like we might have a couple that are here for 3 or 4 weeks, and I have one that's here now for 2 weeks. He's going away to China for 9. So I have to basically be able to keep tabs on him and make sure that he's going through some things. And there's a lot of times throughout the day that we may create a new exercise. Hey, this might be good for him. We're like, oh, he's on the road. Okay, well, we videotape it, we load it in there and say, okay, hey, try this workout for you. So it's been great for us to really make sure that when the athletes come back, now they're just, I don't want to say as fresh as they were, but they're not. We're not starting all over again. We have a pretty good foundation that's still there that we can keep with them and keep that moving forward. So we can keep progressing them along the way. So really, for me, that's been a game changer, and managing that is kind of that portion throughout the day. That's the I'll say that, I don't want to say a challenge, but it's a time consumption, and that's part of the business of operating and implementing the programs that we have to make sure that we're on top of that. Or if we fall behind, then their athletes aren't too happy when they miss their workouts.
Nope.
Right. So what about your workouts and your approach at the Florida Institute of Performance is unique?
I like a lot of it is more of the attention to detail. So we'll really look at. Every athlete that comes through here, they have their own book. They have their own set of workouts that they're going to go through. So we might have 8 to 10 people in here at one time, but there might be 8 to 10 different workouts going on at one time because everybody has a little unique approach that we need to put in there. Even though they all might be high school kids, we might have a kid that's he's got a bad shoulder, or he's got a bad knee, or it's a low back that we have to be conscientious of. So there's all things based on the evaluation that we have taken them through or tested them on, that we need to make sure that we're covering those bases, that we need to make sure that we have all those things taken care of. We might have a pitcher, we might have a volleyball player, We might have a basketball player. We might have, a figure skater all in here at one time. There's all, different unique tendencies within the sport that we have to cover to go through a lot of that. Basketball player we need more vertical. We need more vertical. The baseball pitcher needs more, rotational power that we have to cover on there. The main concept that we do is try and make them a better athlete, but we want to make sure we get to their uniqueness or their, I don't want to say imperfections, but the areas that we found within the evaluation that's necessary for them to keep improving.
Right. So you mentioned a lot of team sports there, maybe minus figure skating. So how is training golf different from training those team sports? Because a lot of those team sports, there's, the coaching staffs that can look at what athletes need to do differently. But sometimes with golf, it's a little bit more of a self-evaluation game.
Yeah, I think what today's game is, as we mentioned earlier, I think a lot of it is, the coaches have a lot of input in terms of what's happening. So what's going on in the instruction or what the coach wants to have them do is also creating that foundation within there. So it's no different than a baseball manager or something. I think the golf instruction is actually even more detailed than what a team sport would be, because a lot of times the manager's like, yeah, go work out. We want to get you stronger and faster for everything within the game of baseball. Whereas the golf instructor, they're more hands-on with that individual. So they're going to see a little bit more of the intricacies of, whatever it might be. The right arm's not externally rotating effectively. They're not getting a good torso rotation properly. Not able to load up in that right hip from the golf, and they put more of that on video. Within the game of baseball or basketball or soccer, they're not videotaping every little move that the player kind of goes through and makes. They know in generalization, hey, this is what we need to do, but all the minute details aren't there within it. And I'm going to say that's good and bad. So it kind of works in both directions, where I think too often a golfer is so focused on one little thing as opposed to the big picture. To kind of get some things out there, and the opposite's true with the soccer player that you have, is where they're focused on the big picture, but they're not so fine tuned on the little details.
Okay. Yeah. You mentioned the business aspect and how kind of your passion is for the training, and we talked a little bit about that. If there's one tip you could give people about the business side, maybe something that's made it easier, or any kind of tip or hack, what would that be?
Don't answer your emails all the time. Save the emails for morning and night if you can, or if not, first thing in the morning. I think too often we get caught up into it. Hey, we have to do it right now. We get a text message, we get a phone call, we get an email, something pops up and screams, oh my God, we got to answer that. You don't have to. And that's really from the business standpoint that I've kind of learned. Let the emails go a little bit. They can wait. And sometimes I'm guilty of letting them wait too long. But I think I read something one time. It was a CEO of a top 500 or whatever business, and she said she doesn't answer any emails. She basically passes they all get forwarded to her secretary, and she doesn't answer them. I don't have a secretary, so it's one of those things where I just kind of look at for the end of the day or the first part of the next day, and that's when I kind of go back through and answer everything and respond that way. If they really want me, they can call me or they can send me a text message. But I'm in a luxury. I always say with training in my business, it's not brain surgery. It's not life or death. If it's something that usually can wait, for a little bit of time. If it's an urgency, well, they don't need me. They need somebody else. If it's an urgent situation. So that's probably my biggest thing is I kind of let the emails wait a little bit and kind of answer them all or delete them all is kind of what usually the case with all the junk stuff that I get at one time.
Yeah, our CEO used to be a big proponent of the email box zero, and we just talked about this 2 weeks ago actually as a team, and that's his strategy now is he answers them at specific points of the day, and then after that he's not touching it, because you can't get caught where you're just like checking it every 5 or 10 minutes and then you've got nothing done. So
yeah, and it's the same for me. It's the same with social media, and I think you can get sucked into a black hole as to where you start looking at emails and social media and everything else. And now all of a sudden an hour has gone by and you've done absolutely nothing but looked at what everybody else is glorifying with their business. So I even stopped some of that stuff. My wife always asks me, "Did you look at social media?" I said, "No, I haven't looked at it." I mean, I might go 2 or 3 days where I don't even look at it, just because it's more of, again, somebody trying to glorify what they're doing. And it gets me almost, I'll say, it gets me frustrated. It gets me mad. It's like, why don't we look like that? When I look back and go, we're doing the same thing. So it's just, I kind of push a lot of that stuff back to the side and try and take care of what I have in front of me.
Yep. Yeah, that's all good stuff. What's been the most rewarding part about owning your own business and the performance center that you're running?
Yeah, I think selfishly, just to say it's my own. It's something that I can kind of control the books. I control, if we want to buy something, I can control, a lot of the things that kind of happen within the day, and looking at staff wise, what we need to do, or if we need to make a change, or I can intern wants to come in and, hey, I want to volunteer and spend some time with you. I can say yes or no. I mean, it's not reliant upon somebody else to do that. And I've done, the corporate world for really 25 plus years of going through a lot of that, and always working for somebody else and having to answer to somebody else and doing a lot of those things. And I can answer to myself. Well, me and my wife, I have to answer to her as well. But from a standpoint of who makes the decisions, or going through a lot of that, that's up to me. And again, it's both good and bad, but it's because if it goes wrong, it's my fault. But if it goes right, it's mine as well, and I can take responsibility for either way, the pluses or the minuses.
Yep. What about the most challenging thing with owning your own business?
The finances, the salaries, the overhead, all those things that I have to look at every day and go, okay, if we have an empty gym right now, I know in my head that we're losing X number of dollars per hour by going through all this, and it's knowing those numbers, or knowing those factors that are things that drive me crazy to do all that. And it's, as I said earlier, it's the actual running of the business. I'm not a business guy, and I'll be the first to admit that. I'm learning as we go to try and figure all these little things out, and put a lot of that here, and that's the probably the challenging is, I'm not the best that, again, we put on open houses, we invite people here, and I just trying to figure out how do we get more traffic through the doors day in and day out, and battle the challenges of every high school sport events where it's this time you have baseball. Okay, how do we match up and get the off season for these sports and do all that, and get the information out, and finding a way to market all those people and do all that. I mean, that's truly to me the biggest challenge, is to continually get a revolving door of people coming in. Hopefully not too many go out, but I know they have to at certain times. We have college kids that are here the summertime, they have to go back to school eventually. So can we get enough people in the fall to make up for that loss as well?
Okay. And then, you talked about training the athletes and kind of knowing where their weakness is and being able to tweak some of that stuff. But even as a business, how has it helped you, knowing your strengths and weakness, and knowing what your mission and where you guys excel at, as far as delivering a really great product to the athletes and the other people that you work with that come into the gym?
I think the biggest thing is letting the people know we care, that we want to help them kind of get back to or to improve. I say get back, and that's kind of for more people. I got an injured soccer player returning to play. I got people that are individuals trying to get better and improving upon that. And I think knowing that we have an understanding of the activities and the movement patterns, and we can actually break the exercise down, and not only tell them what the benefits of the exercise, but really, and my thing in the more sport specifically, is tell it how the exercise benefits the sport, not the other way around. I mean, I think that's the biggest thing for, most people kind of get caught up in, is they're like trying to get, hey, this is a golf exercise. Well, no, it's not. It's a squatting motion that we can apply to the game of golf, or to the movement of golf, to help make your swing better. to help make your performance better. And I think that's more along the lines that people need to understand, is that, most of the exercises are going to be similar, but how does it benefit you in terms of your particular sport? And to go through that. And I think once we go through a lot of that and really educate the athlete, educate the individual as to why we're doing something, and not just giving them a list of exercises to kind of go through and, oh, hey, let's do this for today. Let's go through this. So we actually have a plan. We have a sheet we're going to follow. Do we change that sheet when they're in there? Yes, based on certain situations. But we have a game plan. We understand kind of what's going on and what we're going to do today. As opposed to just the exercise du jour or exercise of the day. Oh, let's try. We're going to do this one today and just do bands today, and everybody's going to do the same thing. You know what? No, we're going to follow a pretty good protocol and everything else. I mean, I was looking at it and say, do you think Bill Belichick just walks out the field and go, I feel like just throwing today. We're just going to play catch today and go through all that? No, there's an actual process that needs to take place, and that's for overall athletes and developing and kind of going through a lot of that process, and that's a program that we have here at the Florida Institute of Performance.
So you mentioned earlier about Greg Norman and Michael Jordan's impacts on the different sports. What's one thing that most people wouldn't know when it comes to training professional athletes? And maybe explain to us the main difference between training a pro caliber athlete and then an average person.
I think the biggest difference is that a pro caliber or somebody that's going to go through and aspiring to be pro, I think they work a little harder than the normal person. And part of that is, might be time that they have because they are a pro athlete. They have, as you mentioned, LeBron has 10 hours a day to spend on doing some training or doing some other types of things. But I think it's really, there's a mental aspect of that too. And I compare that a lot to corporate people. Very successful corporate individuals, very successful athletes have the same mental drive as one another. They basically they come in, they're on a mission, and they know exactly what they want to do. They know exactly what they're going to do, and they put forth, a really great effort to get themselves better along those lines. The other part of it is I always tell people that when as me training them, and I learned this a long time ago, a pro athlete, a high level corporate individual who's worth over millions, they all put their pants on the same way. So you got to treat them the same way. You can't put them on a pedestal. You can't raise them up to a high level. As a coach, and I learned this, the hard way when I was working with the Cavaliers a long time ago, is you treat them with respect, you treat them the same as everybody else, and they'll respect you for that. It's not like you don't go in and you don't worship them and, I'll do all this stuff. It's, hey, this is what we're going to do today, and we're going to work at it. We're going to go hard. And that's how they want to be treated. And that's one of the parts that people don't realize is like, oh, this is so-and-so from that. No, what? Yeah, he's still a person. He's still an individual and likes respect. Pro athletes would rather get a handshake and a hi, how you doing from you, and then hey, can I have your autograph? That type of thing. I think they'll respect you more for that aspect than they will for the other, and just again, kind of, I'll say, worshiping at their feet.
Yeah. I think I was thinking as you were talking about knowing your business and knowing the costs, and even though that wasn't that wasn't your primary function, I always think of like a good business owner knows those things, even if it's not their favorite thing. And same thing, I think you talked about that mindset with people who have that drive, and it's almost like they know that their body is their business and they have to know exactly what's going on, like the educational piece you talked to, and like be on it. Like you can't take a day off, because especially now where everybody has a trainer, and you got guys like LeBron and other guys in other sports that are pouring the money. Like if you're going to keep up, you've got to know what you're doing and really train smartly and treat it like a business almost.
Yeah, and I even look at this and I go back to the Bo Jackson situation, and related to this is where he came out and he said, "Look, I dislocated my hip," and they're like, "Nah, no, you didn't, and I've learned over the course of time from that. I mean, an athlete knows his body better than anybody, and they can tell you little things that kind of go on there within themselves that that one, I don't know what's happening. So it's like, I got to believe them. And I really look at it and say, okay, this is what you feel. I know, you got a little, your mind and your body are working pretty systematically together. And I have to believe that you're right. On all those situations, and I got to double check it to make sure that we go through that. And that's why I even like set an individual out here, going out here doing a heavy lift, and I was like, do the first set and tell me how you feel, because and then he's like, yeah, I feel pretty good. Okay, well, let's go. When I know we can go. If he's like, I'm a little sluggish, I'm a little tired or whatever. Okay, well, we got to back it off a little bit. We got to change the sequence that we're going through. So it's really letting them tell you and dictate, their levels and their activity, because they're really in tune with what's happening.
Yeah, this kind of goes along with that, I think. But what's one exercise or something that athletes do that you wish they wouldn't do, or that you recommend they stop? Like, when I think about this, we just read a study and we shared it around the team where people giving advice on Instagram, like they looked at that, and like people that aren't experts in their field, and they're wrong like 80% of the time. So is there something that you like this, any kind of misconceptions that you run into with athletes that are like, I'm going to do this to get better, but you're like, no, please never do that?
It falls in line with this, but I wouldn't say it's one thing. I don't think there's really one bad exercises. I think there's people that are giving bad advice, for one, or people performing the exercise incorrectly.
Yeah.
I think that really, because there's a value to every exercise if it's done correctly, if there's a purpose for that. And I'll go back to, one of my biggest pet peeves with the Instagram things is looking at the box jumps, and people sitting there going, oh, he's got a 55-inch box jump. No, he doesn't. He's got a 40-inch foot jump, and he's got a 10-inch head jump. That equals the 55 inches, because your hips did not move 55 inches. And that's where we measure the true vertical displacement of the hips, and what's the value, what's the height of the box jump. If we measure this correctly, it's not 55 inches. So why is somebody trying to jump onto a box of saying, oh, man, that's the power explosion? If you're looking at hip flexors or bringing your feet up to something as fast as possible, yeah, that's correct. And I always compare it to somebody and say, how do you, in basketball, how do you block a shot? Do you bring your feet up as high as you can, or you try and jump your arms up and your head up as high as you can? And it's, oh, as I jump my arms up, like, say what? Yeah, then why would you jump on that box that high? So I think it comes back to, it comes back to bad advice that people are giving you, but people who proclaim themselves to be experts, and people performing exercises incorrectly are probably that's probably the only real thing I would say is from the exercise standpoint. Because again, I think if there's a purpose, and if you can answer as a trainer, why are we doing this? What is this for? What's the purpose of the exercise? And explain that back to the individual, again, as the educational point of view, that's the biggest difference between doing something correctly or doing something incorrectly.
Yeah, I think I loved your analogy. Like, that makes so much sense, again, as a basketball fan. Like, you're not pulling your feet up high to try to jump up further to block. It makes no difference. So.
Right.
All right, so that's all we had for you. I did want to check what's next up for you. Any big plans for the Florida Institute of Performance, or new programs or new initiatives?
Yeah, we're looking at trying to create some things with a couple of local baseball teams around here that we're trying to get back into a little bit more of I'll say the team training aspect, get connected a little bit more along those lines. That's probably the big area. I'm really trying to develop out my online platform a whole lot more, and trying to be more of nationally, if not worldwide, to kind of go through a lot of different areas from there. Like to get more of an education platform going from my end. I keep looking back and going, geez, I've been doing this for 30 years. I have to have something that I can share with somebody out there. So trying to get a little bit more along the lines of an educational platform going are probably the three biggest things that we're really looking to do over the next 6 months or so here.
Awesome. That's exciting. I know it's always one part daunting, one part exciting to get those new things rolling and kind of see where it goes. So
this comes back to that business part of you. Somebody has to do it, and it usually is me. So I got to find the time to kind of write it all out and put the planning together. So that's the business part of it.
Yep. Well, it was great talking with you, David. We really appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule to answer a few questions and to let people get to know you and to share your story with us. So Thank you, and hope you have a great rest of the day.
No problem. I greatly appreciate it. You guys too. Have a great day.
All right, thanks, Dave.
Yeah, take care.